Ladies and gentlemen, hey, listen, welcome back to the show. Listen, you have found yourself on the Childlike Faith podcast right here inside the FuNLiFe community, powered by that guy right there, legendary speaker and trainer motivator, Mr. Ziglar, and his proud son, Tom Ziglar, the author of the foundational program, Choose to Win, which we start all the cool kids on here, right? And the Childlike Faith podcast was specifically designed and created for you, Christian entrepreneurs who want to grow and scale your business to be able to achieve the financial freedom you're looking for without sacrificing your time, your family, your faith, and baby, especially not your joy. And so what does Childlike Faith look like, right? If you are, we just finished up our Master Your Fear masterclass yesterday on Faith Your Fears Friday, right? And so today on Something to Smile About Saturday, we get to have a phenomenal guest. Goes back to when I became Ziglar Legacy Certified through the Ziglar organization. He was our speakers coach. He came in and did an incredible presentation on the importance of your voice and how all that works. And you're going to be able to hear Hall of Fame speaker. I'll actually let him introduce himself. Let me bring to the stage the one and only Jim Cathcart. Jim.
Hey, thank you, Johnny Wan. And, if it's the cool kids, then I got to wear these shades, right?
You got to wear shades, baby.
Well, I had the extreme privilege of attending a church service with Zig and Gene Ziglar in Dallas many, many years ago. I knew Zig well through the National Speakers Association, and we had appeared on some programs together, some big motivational rallies. And of course, I was an admirer of his. I had lived for a short time in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I live in Austin, Texas today. And when I was in Tulsa, Zig came through town. And one of the nights he came through, well, let me set it up first. He came through in 1977, November of 77. He was speaking at Oral Roberts University as one of many in a lineup called the Positive Thinking Rally. I was one of the local trainer at the time who bought tickets. I bought a batch of tickets for me and some of my friends, and we came to hear all these wonderful speakers. I'd never heard of Zig. He was new. And I'd heard of Art Linkletter and Earl Nightingale and Paul Harvey and people like that, Robert Schuller. They were all on the program. And then Zig came on, and oh my gosh, he owned 11,700 people in a heartbeat.
I was going to say, Ziglar doesn't just come through town.
No. So he came out on that stage in front of all of us like a rock concert. And he said, how many of you would like a all expense paid ticket to Acapulco? And we all went, yeah. And he said, okay, there's only one condition. It's leaving tomorrow. If I gave you a ticket, how many of you could be ready tomorrow to take that trip? And, big response from the audience. How many of you would rather have several days to prepare? Another response from the audience, but not as enthusiastic. And then he made his point that you got to be ready to act when the opportunity arises. Now, fast forward about a year, Zig was coming back into town for a seminar that I was going to. And this one was at I think it was the Sheraton on the Skelly Bypass. Just words that pop back into my head from that many years ago. And it was on sales. And so I went into this meeting room, and I'm sitting there with maybe 500 people. And out comes this guy in a yellow leisure suit. Now, if you don't know what a leisure suit is, Google it. But he had on a yellow, two-piece outfit, and it looked like it was designed for leisure and could have been worn for business. And in the 70s, it was. And his was bright yellow with top stitching. So it looked almost like a costume, but it was his suit. And he walked out on stage, and I remember to this day, now this is 50 years ago almost. To this day, I remember how he opened his speech. He walked out and didn't say good evening or anything like that. He just walked to the center of the stage. He said, there are 5 reasons and 5 reasons only why your customer won't buy from you tomorrow. No need, no money, no hurry, no trust, no ability or authority. And I thought, wow, that's pure gold. And I captured it and I've remembered it all these years. He was that powerful as a speaker. Now, have you ever heard of Chicken Soup for the Soul? Yeah. So we've all, that's the best-selling book series of all time. I mean, aside from biblical tomes, that has outsold National Geographic, Life magazine, all the big hitters of the day back when. And so Chicken Soup for the Soul was first conceived by Mark Victor Hansen and Jack Canfield. My wife Paula and I were in Los Angeles for the Book Expo America, the big, huge booksellers convention. And I was there promoting my new book at the time, Relationship Selling. And we're walking around, my wife and I, and we saw Mark Victor Hansen and Jack Canfield. And they said, hey, Jim, Paula, come here. We've got a new book. Let us tell you about it. And so they told us about Chicken Soup for the Soul. And we said, yeah, that's a clever idea. And they said, well, we haven't found a publisher yet, but we've talked to many of them and we're going to find one soon. Wow. So I'm going to switch glasses here. The glare is coming through the windows a bit strong. So pardon me for that.
Sure.
So anyway, I sat down with Mark Victor Hansen and Jack Canfield, and they told us about Chicken Soup for the Soul before it had ever sold a single book. I've been a contributor to 2 or 3 of the Chicken Soup books over the years, and it has sold hundreds of millions, literally worldwide. Why is that significant? Why did I even bring it up? Mark Victor Hansen, before he was known by anybody, was one of a few people who were following the positive thinking rallies around the country and working on a volunteer basis to sell products between speakers. So they would man the product tables and sell the merchandise between the keynoters. And so we'd go out, we, the audience, would go out to get our refreshments, and see these tables and meet these people. So Mark and I hit it off. And he and a fellow named Keith DeGreen invited me to come and speak at a Amway rally, their Amway local meeting, not a rally, in Choteau, Oklahoma, outside of Tulsa. And the 2 of them were going to present and sell their products. And so we all 3 did that. And then we came the next night to this event where Zig did those 5 ways or 5 reasons people won't buy. And at the end of his seminar, which was about 2 or 3 hours long, he had agreed to come out to the lobby and meet with Mark and Keith and me, because we were all budding young Ziglars. We wanted to grow up to be like him. And we each were already in business full-time as trainers. So Zig comes out after everything's over to the lobby of the hotel where we're sitting. And he sits down and he says, okay, boys, what can I do for you? And I said, Mr. Ziglar, we want to know what it takes for us to become the heir apparent to the throne of Ziglar. He laughed. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, we're each professional speakers and trainers, and we want to do what you do like you do it. And he said, well, tell me what you're doing now. And we each told him how we were building our business and focusing our message and, serving our customers and all that. And he thought for a minute and he said, don't stop. And I said, okay. And he said, no, Jim, I'm serious. You're doing all the right things. Don't stop. Well, Mark Victor Hansen went on to be one of the world's wealthy people and best-selling authors, in history. I went on to become president of the National Speakers Association, delivered 3,500 keynote convention speeches around the world, write 27 books, be inducted into the Sales and Marketing Hall of Fame and the Professional Speakers Hall of Fame, and get the Toastmasters International Golden Gavel Award, which Zig had also received. And I was not ever a Toastmaster. Well, I was for 3 months in the 1970s. But, I didn't come up through the ranks of Toastmasters. They reached out to me and gave me that award. And so I joined the ranks of Zig Ziglar and Earl Nightingale and other recipients for that. Now, I'm not saying that to say how wonderful I am. I'm saying that to illustrate that the inspiration that Zig shared and the encouragement he gave to us young bucks who were hoping to someday do what he did was a key factor in our growth and ultimate achievement. And so now I'm at a position, age 78, where I look back over my career and I've been able to pass the baton to the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. And what I do today is I still give keynote speeches and such and author books, but primarily I am a mentor to people like you and me who are in the earlier stages of their career. And so I sign people up for a mentorship of several months. And then at the end of it, I bestow the Certified Professional Expert CPE designation on them.
Wow.
Yep.
That's amazing.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Now I'm gonna share this because this is something that when I was on that episode the other day, I saw you kind of talk about it. But let me go ahead and pull this up.
Okay. There you go.
It says reach the top 1% in any field.
Any field.
And I don't care who you are. If people haven't followed you, Jim Cathcart, they just need to YouTube you. The TEDx talk you did was amazing. The Acorn Principle, the way you illustrated so perfectly, so well done.
Thank you.
I actually lead a Toastmasters organization here in my local community, and I get so pumped, so excited to watch the new. They do their icebreaker speech, and they're up there just nervous and white knuckling the podium and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
But when you're that cool kid having ultimate fun, the impact is exponential. The money follows, and you really can reach the top 1% in your field. I mean, can you kind of unpack that a little bit?
You bet. And that book, by the way, Mentor Minutes, anybody can go get it on Amazon. You can download it for almost nothing in Kindle, or you can buy a printed copy, which I recommend, of course, because when you've got the actual tangible book, it makes a difference. You see it on your bookshelf, you pick it up occasionally and thumb through it. And this one's I wrote this one as life lessons for my grandkids initially, and then rewrote it into a book for everybody.
Oh,
but
nice.
It's 336 1-minute life lessons. Well, why not 365? Well, it was 365, but when I had a bunch of friends and family review it, they said, about 30 or 40 of these are so obvious that it doesn't make sense to mention them. And I said, okay, so we cut it down to 336. And that's what this book is, 336 1-minute life lessons. But it's all couched within the context of how do you identify a field you care about? And it could be, you could focus on the Christian community, you could focus on a secular community, you could focus on geniuses, and make that your pathway, or landscapers, or people who drive for DoorDash. I mean, it doesn't matter. Choose your lane, whatever field you want. You can reach the top 1% of that field in just a few years if you follow the structure that I've laid out in that book. How do I know it works? Because I've done it in my field, as I just illustrated a while ago. I mean, I started out with no college degree, no money in the bank, didn't know anybody that had money. My parents didn't know anybody that had money. My dad was a telephone repairman. When I got married in 1970, I was 50 pounds overweight and smoking 2 packs a day. And we had a new baby, and I'm working in a government clerk position at the Urban Renewal Agency, Little Rock, Arkansas Housing Authority. And my wife's working as a part-time secretary. And we're doing everything we can to scrape by on the few dollars that we bring in. And I hear Earl Nightingale on the radio, and I get inspired. And without getting a college degree in the field of personal development, in a matter of 2 years, I was a full-time trainer leading other people's courses on personal development, applied behavioral science, success skills, basically. And within 2 more years, I was a full-time speaker and trainer flying around the country teaching my courses. And in that was 72 when I heard Earl Nightingale on the radio. In 1974, I was a full-time trainer teaching other people's courses. In 1979, I was a full-time speaker living in California. I moved to San Diego and formed a partnership with a college professor, Dr. Tony Alessandro. And we created an audio program on personality types. DISC is the way it's best known by most people. And it was the first audio program on personality types ever published. Now let that sink in. That's a bold claim.
Yeah.
There were other people like Carl Jung, and William Moulton Marston, who came up with the DISC version of that. And, a lot of other people who were notable in that field. Larry Wilson of Wilson Learning, Dr. David Merrill. But nobody had produced an audio program. And at that time in the 1970s, audio cassette programs were the thing. This was before CDs were popular. It was audio cassettes. And Earl Nightingale and Dennis Waitley, who was published by Earl Nightingale, had the best-selling audio programs on earth. And Paul J. Meyer out of Texas had an audio set on the science of achievement and personal achievement. And he had created Success Motivation Institute. So I'm listening to all their tapes. And in 1979 and 80, Dr. Tony Alessandro and I created our own audio program on the 4 personality types.
Wow.
I was sitting at my office, my desk in San Diego. The phone rang. I picked it up. This was 1984, beginning of the year. And the voice on the phone said, "May I speak to Jim Cathcart?" And I thought, boy, that's a familiar voice.
Uh-huh.
This is Jim Cathcart. He said, "This is Earl Nightingale." Johnny one, I almost wet myself. Oh my gosh, it's him. This would be like someone today getting a call from Ziglar, right?
Yeah.
So, wow. And I said, how can I help you? And he said, "I read an article of yours in a magazine recently, and I think it would make a good audio program." And I said, "Well, that article is an audio program." And he said, "Well, send yours to me. And if we like it, my company will publish it." So in 1972, I heard Earl Nightingale on the radio, and his 1 minute or 5 minute broadcast, 1 minute of it inspired me to change my life. Okay. 2 years later, I was selling Earl Nightingale's cassette recordings door to door to businesses in Little Rock, Arkansas. I was not a distributor. I was a salesperson for Harold Gash, who was the Nightingale distributor there. So that was 1974. Fast forward to 1984, 10 years. Earl Nightingale is selling my cassettes. And he sold $2.5 million worth of my cassette program in 1984 and 85. We became known worldwide. We got bookings in South Africa, in Australia, Malaysia, all of that off of that audio album. So look at the miraculous gap between the fat 2-pack a day smoking loser government clerk, hearing him on the radio, and the guy on the radio being the publisher and salesperson of $3.5 million worth of that guy's audio message. Holy smokes. And you say there's not a God? That's a miracle.
Amen, brother.
That is absolutely a miracle. And by the way, I want to say this up front. Many times at the end of my speeches, I'll have people in the audience come up to me and say, I get the impression that you're a Christian. And I tell them, well, that's entirely intentional because I am. In other words, I want my faith not to be something I preach, but something that shows through who I am and how I live my life. And that's the thing. This past Sunday at my church, we had two high school graduates entering college. Well, actually one entering college and the other going off to Nashville to pursue a career in music. A well-connected person who's not just starting from scratch, but has a leg up. And while the whole church was gathered together at lunch, congratulating the new graduates, I stood up and I said to the church, I said, Paula and I, my wife and I, have lived here for 5 years now and been a member of this church. And this feels more like a family reunion than it does a church gathering to us. So thank you for welcoming us. And something I want you to know is this. Mother Teresa once was asked by a news reporter, tell me about your ministry. She said, no, come and look. And she walked away. Come and look, come and look. In other words, her ministry was about doing, not about talking.
Action, baby.
Yep. And then I said to the assembled people from our church, as these two graduates were standing before us, I said, when people ask me about our church, what I would say to them, and I pointed to the two graduates, I said, come and look.
Yeah.
And everybody applauded, because the kind of people we produce as a result of our life philosophy, our business practices, our way of teaching, our parenting skills, our guidance as a leader or manager or a podcast host or an author or a speaker, the kind of results we produce, by their fruits ye shall know them, right? So don't judge me by my words, judge me by the example set by the people that have used those words in their own life. This morning, I got a text from a guy named Tony Meeks. He owns a company called Ziglar, and he produces instruments, musical instruments, and guitar stands and stools for guitar performance studios and things like that. And he's in Brenham, Texas. And several years ago, I went to the NAMM conference, the National Association of Music Merchants. This is a gathering that's bigger than a state fair. It draws 100,000 people.
Wow.
For like 5 days to Anaheim, California every year. And it's every corner of the music business you can imagine. The piano companies are there with their new pianos on exhibit. You know, the expo covers like 4 hotels and the entire convention center next door to Disneyland. And it's, I don't know, thousands and thousands and thousands of expo booths. And all the guitar companies are there. All of the music publishing companies are there. The performers come there to see the new technology. I was standing in an audience in the expo that was gathered around one of the booths, and there were probably 30 or 40 of us crowded into this one little area to see the guy that was testing one of the new keyboards. And it was Stevie Wonder. He was going through the expo and trying out new products. And then I'm walking down the aisle, and there's a woman sitting there signing autographs. It's Amy Winehouse. And then I go a little bit further, and here's the Paul Reed Smith, PRS, guitar booth. And Orianthi, the lead guitarist, a woman lead guitarist for Michael Jackson, was there signing autographs. And oh my gosh, you know, and I'm standing there, and the guy says, hey, Jim. And I turn around, and it's the drummer for the band Chicago, Danny Seraphin, who was a neighbor of mine at the time. And it was he and his wife, Pamela. And so we chatted and wandered around for a while. So, holy moly, I mean, this is just astounding when you think of the impact and the reach that we have. Okay, I'm not an exceptional musician. I'm a competent musician. And one of the things I say in the book, Mentor Minutes, is you need to choose your level of aspiration. Do you want to be a star? If you do, it's going to take everything you are and everything you do and everything you have for basically the rest of your life. If you want to be a Tony Robbins in my field, if you want to be a Zig Ziglar, Grant Cardone, some of the big names like that, it's going to take all of you, right? And you got to have integrity down to your deepest core, right? So I choose in the music field to just be competent. Well, what's that mean? Well, it means that I'm good enough to sit at the big kids table. So if you get together with a bunch of musicians like Danny Seraphin from Chicago, and I've got a guitar, I can hold my own and not be an embarrassment.
Uh-huh.
Okay. But I'm not excellent except at a few songs. Now, excellent is the next step above competent. Excellent takes more commitment. But if you're excellent, that means you can cause people occasionally to go, wow, that was good. Hey, Johnny, want to do that again, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if you're an expert, which is still the next level, an expert can perform excellence anytime they want to. They can say, let me impress this group, and they step forward and kaboom, what they do is substantial, right? So here are the competent, excellent, expert, and then we enter a different league. Leading authority, celebrity, star. Now, what's the difference between an expert and a leading authority? An expert is not necessarily well known. A leading authority is an expert who is well enough known that they're occasionally quoted. Like you and I would say, as Zig says, you can get everything you want in life if you just help enough other people get what they want. Okay, that's Zig Ziglar. That's the essence of his message, and it's the essence of him as a person. He was a servant leader. He lived his message, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a leading authority. Now, Earl Nightingale was a leading authority, occasionally a celebrity, but mostly a leading authority. That's my level of aspiration as a speaker and author. My personal mantra in life is John 10:10. I have come that they would have life and have it more abundantly. And I believe my personal mission in life, not that God gave me this mission, but it's the one I embraced. My mission is to help people live more abundantly. Now, if I live a tiny little embarrassingly small life, how can I inspire others to live abundantly? And when I say live abundantly, I mean mental, physical, family, social, spiritual, career, financial, emotional, my whole life. I need to be looking for ways to be more abundant, more thriving and flourishing in the living of that part of my life, and inspire others to do the same, not just through example, but also through my teaching. So in the book, Mentor Minutes, I keep coming back to that live more abundantly message. And above leading authority is celebrity. Now, celebrity is where you're famous. You're invited to all the big events because they want your name on the marquee, right? Did you have a comment? I saw you raise your hand.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing. I'm amening over here.
Yep. And so celebrity, that takes more work. You got to be intentional to go from leading authority to celebrity. Brian Tracy is a friend of mine, and Brian is really well known. He is a celebrity in the field of personal development. I knew Brian when he was a trainer teaching other people's courses in Canada, and he lived in Edmonton, Alberta. And so before he was a speaker, before he even became a U.S. citizen many years later, I knew Brian. And Brian heard me give a speech one time in New Orleans at a speakers convention. And he came up to me at the end and he said, "Can I come have lunch with you in California, in La Jolla, where you live, which is San Diego area, and talk to you about being based in California?" I said, "Sure." So he flew down to San Diego, and Tony Alessandra and I met with him at George's restaurant in La Jolla. And we talked about what it was like working from California. And Brian packed up and moved to California, became a U.S. citizen over time, ultimately ran for governor of California, but Arnold Schwarzenegger got elected instead. And Brian is known worldwide. Okay. Why? Because from the start, he knew he wanted to be a celebrity in this field. See, I never did. It didn't matter to me to be a celebrity. I just wanted to be one of those they were quoting. And Johnny One, I got a call about 4 months ago from a client of mine who I'd been doing some speech coaching for, a woman who's a well-known personality in AI and the metaverse, as they used to call it.
Uh-huh.
And she lives in the Philippines part-time, where she grew up. And she said, "Jim, I got to show you something. Check your text." And I look, and it's a photograph of her in front of a wall in a shopping mall in Manila, Philippine Islands. And the wall has a mural of hot air balloons and a quote. And that's the only thing on the entire wall, hot air balloons and this prominent quote: "The future you see reveals the person you'll be, Jim Cathcart." Wow. That went straight to my heart, because that's what I was working for.
Wow.
That's what I wanted, is to have the message I share get shared in ways like that it becomes part of the culture over time. Not important to me that people say, "Ooh, ooh, ooh, Jim Cathcart, can I touch?" That's not pleasant to me. I just want them to say, "Jim Cathcart, I know that name." And then I jokingly reply, "Well, I've been using it all my life." And they go, "But where do I know your name?" And I say, "Oh, yeah, that's all." And I'm happy with that. So choose your level. Do you want to be competent? You want to be excellent, expert, leading authority, celebrity, or star? Because that tells you how hard you got to work and what you need to focus on. Now, there's another thing we need to go back to.
Go ahead.
And that's why I bring up music. And that is because that's a lane one could pick. Let's say you're just starting out in your career, and maybe you've made your bones in another area and you don't want to do that anymore. You want to go into, let's say, the music business. And you want to reach the top 1% of the music business, and you don't read music, and you can't sing, and you don't play an instrument. Okay? What are the odds you're going to naturally float to the top?
It's going to take work.
In round numbers. Yeah, big zero, right? Not going to happen unless you decide that's what you want to do.
Commit, yeah.
See, that is the big thing. What is the one thing common to all successful people since the beginning of time? The one thing, here's the one thing. They decided to. They decided to succeed. Because success, you can have momentary successes. You can be blessed by an opportunity bigger than you. That's fine. But those are momentary. They don't last. It's like, pulling a puppy out of a burning building will get you on the evening news, but it's not going to keep you on the evening news. It was a wonderful act of kindness and bravery, but that didn't define your future. So they decided to. That is all else can be thrown away. That is the single success criterion that starts the whole process. When I was talking with Brian Tracy, this is just like 3 days ago, we had an hour-long Zoom chat. And Brian said, "Jim," he said, I used to talk about the success secrets of self-made millionaires. He said, because I had studied millionaires from every angle imaginable. He said, but I wasn't a millionaire until
Come on.
I decided to become one. He said, now I'm a multimillionaire. He said, I knew how. I could explain it. I could teach it. I knew it backward and forward. I could quote you millionaires from across the spectrum, but I wasn't one until I decided to become one. That's kind of like the biblical principle, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all the rest will be added unto you, right? Same thing's true when it comes to personal development. Become the kind of person that would have that outcome, and guess what you get? You get that outcome as your natural byproduct. If you become the kind of person other people want as a neighbor, you're going to have better relations with your neighbors. If you become the kind of person everybody wants on their team, you're going to get more job offers, more promotions, and more opportunities. Become the kind of person that you want to become, and all the rest will come. I wrote the book, The Acorn Principle, around this central concept. If you become the person who would achieve the results you want, the results you want will occur organically, naturally. They will be the oak tree that comes from your acorn.
Yeah.
So nurture your nature. Don't try to be something you're not designed for. Be something that feels so natural. It's like pajamas that have been worn for 5 days and it's warm and snuggly and just, it's almost like not being dressed. It feels so good to you, right? So figure out, what are your natural strengths? What are your natural abilities? And you can find that, and thank you for putting that on screen. We've got Mentor Minutes. We've got the Acorn Principle on the two ends of that list of books. And this is on cathcart.com/books. So you can just go there, and this directly links into the Amazon file to order those books. And for those that want to be a speaker, what to do when you're the speaker, you can download that one for free. And just go to free.cathcart.com, free.cathcart.com, and you can download that exact book. You can also buy it in print, of course. But going back to my example, develop the qualities that would lead you to the outcome you want. So now here you are, brand new in the music business. You don't know beans about the music business. How do you get to the top 1%? Well, item one, figure out what's the top 1%. Because in the music business, there's like 1,100 different lanes you could be in. You could be a performer, you could be a publisher, you could be a producer, you could be a arranger, you could be a background musician, you could be a headliner, you could be the person in the sound mixing booth, you could be an audio engineer, you could sell microphones. You see what I'm talking about?
Absolutely.
You can specialize by making capos, the thing that a person can clip onto the neck of their guitar to cause it to change keys while you're still playing the same chord shape.
There we go.
See? So you can do the things I'm talking about. Just pick a lane. I'll give you one here. Hello, darkness, my old friend. I'll talk with you again, because a seed softly creeping, no, because vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain to remain within the sound of silence. So we could spend the rest of the hour doing just that, and I'd be a happy camper. But that's not what I'm here for today. So let's go back to my example, because I'm building something here.
Yeah, go ahead.
You've chosen the music business, and let's say you got nothing going for you, period, nothing.
Zilch.
Okay, I want a future, Jim. I want a future in the music business. How do I do it? I got to get a job first to pay the bills. Okay, where are you going to get a job? I don't know, anywhere they've got one. Are you willing to do entry level work? Just find a roommate to help split the cost of month to month living and just get a minimum wage job somewhere? Yeah. Okay, you're willing to work hard. All right, I'll tell you what. Are you willing to sweep floors and stock shelves and do deliveries and even clean bathrooms if you have to? Yeah. Okay. Where would you do that? Well, anywhere. No. Go back to your original quest. What are you trying to do? Top 1% of what?
Yeah.
Music business. Sweep floors in a music studio.
There you go.
Clean restrooms in a record store. Do deliveries for a microphone manufacturer or a repair company. Go to work as a ticket taker at a local nightclub. Be the backstage guy that handles the lighting and rigging for the stage in a local theater. What do you notice here, boys and girls? Everything I was talking about is in the music business, and every one of those is a zero skill required job that just asks for somebody willing to do the work, right? I remember when I would come home from college in my youth, I had 2 years of college where I went away for the full year and then took a couple of courses later than that, but never did get an earned degree. I got an honorary degree from High Point University 3 years ago, but never earned a degree in the direct way that people do it. So in the summers, I would seek work and any work. And I would go in Little Rock, Arkansas, where I grew up. I would go to a row of warehouses and just start walking in the door and applying for a job. And I remember one particular row of warehouses where I got a job at Arkansas Distributors Tile Warehouse. It was about the fourth place in the row that I had applied. And they said, we need somebody right now. When can you start? Tomorrow morning. Okay, what time do you open? I don't know. Let's say they open at 7 o'clock. I was there at 6:15, sitting on the steps when the boss arrived. And I worked there that summer, had a great time, got paid $1.25 an hour, $200 a month. Okay, but if I had wanted a career in the building trade, working in a tile warehouse would count, right?
Yeah.
So if you're working in a music store or a studio or a record store, or you're working as a roadie for a band, you learn the language of the music business.
Right. You're around it.
You learn the distributors. You learn the brands that are respected and not respected. You learn what to depend on and what to avoid. You learn who to listen to and who not to listen to. You learn what the dangers and successes are, and you probably stumble across a few mentors, or at least temporarily. Someone takes you under their wing and they say, Johnny, come here. I want to show you're doing things this way. Don't do it that way. Do it this way. It'll pay off better. And sure enough, boom, you advance that much. So next thing you know, someone says, hey, we're going to a concert. Johnny One's in the band over here, and we're all going to hear him. Why don't you come along? And you go along and you meet him. And you hang with the band, and they say, hey, if you're ever looking for a traveling job, we need a roadie. Now you're part of the crew. Now you're going to venues where Johnny One's band is opening for a bigger name band like the Eagles or somebody.
Right.
And you get a chance to meet them backstage. And see what I mean? I mean, just
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
With no skills at all, you're just moving up that ladder. Now you say, yeah, Jim, but that's not going to get me to leadership level. It is if you pay attention. Once you pick a lane you're going to stick with, not just music business, which is almost like life. It's so big, right? Once you pick, let's say, performing live in clubs, okay, that's a pretty clear path. Then you know who to hang out with, you know what skills to go get trained in your part-time and take courses and get some apps and start learning about. And you not only know the language, you know the people, you know the venues, you know the pathways, you know the dangers. Now you're starting to learn the skills. And people will respect you because you've been paying attention all the way along the way, and you notice things they don't know yet.
Yes.
And they start asking your advice. And they say, you've been around for a couple of years. What have you seen the best way to handle X? So now then you're doing blog post comments. You're showing up on podcasts as part of the discussion group. Your name is getting out there and you're getting known. You start writing articles and doing your own blogging. You start speaking up and serving as an MC at another person's concert or venue, like you MC the Ziglar Corporation events, you know. And the next thing you know, someone says, hey, have you ever thought about serving on the board of directors of the National Association of Music Merchants? And man, you're in the top 1%.
Strategically, right?
Yeah, intentionally over time. Kaboom. Yep. You can do the same thing in accounting without ever being an accountant.
That is amazing. You know, that always you asked us a question back in 2020 over Zoom, because as Tom Ziglar said, we were the best virtual class Ziglar had ever had.
We were outstanding. And I was one of the instructors. Yay. Yep.
But you asked the question, how would the person you want to become do the thing you're about to do?
That's right. That's the daily question from the Acorn Principle. And I've got that. I had mouse pads made. Remember when mouse pads were a big deal?
Oh, yeah.
This one says, how would the person I'd like to be do the things I'm about to do? The same graphic with an oak tree in the background, an acorn in the foreground, is in the book, The Acorn Principle. And I call that the daily question. And if you ask that question of yourself many times a day, you'll get accustomed to looking at things from the point of view of the oak tree you want to become rather than the acorn that you've been up to now. And when you think like the person you intend to become, you tend to act from that level of enlightenment. Yeah. And it makes everything you do so much better. It's like people ask me when they are entrepreneurs or they're early level manager and they want to progress through their organization if someone else has hired them. How do I do it? And I said, item 1, think like an owner. Okay. No, that's not a lightweight comment. Think like an owner. Well, how does an owner think? Well, an owner takes responsibility for the effect of their behavior. They take responsibility for outcomes because an owner doesn't care about processes unless they produce the right outcomes. See, a process, a system is to a business as a habit is to a person.
Bingo.
And a person who's decided to achieve, decided to own a business, decided to succeed in a business, they aren't concerned about which process they adopt. They'll develop any habit or any system that's ethical and efficient to use as long as it gets the result they want. So if a habit leads to the wrong result, they drop the habit and form a new one. Well, habits are hard. Yeah. At first, over time, they're the easiest thing in the world because once you've got the habit, you can relax.
Yeah.
It's like my push-ups. I do push-ups every day and I've done them for almost a decade. I started years ago. I said, I'm going to do one intentional exercise every day without exception for a month. And so for 30 days, I did one sometimes trivial bit of exercise, sometimes full workout, but every day something, right? And it could be something like just walking up a couple of staircases I didn't need to walk up just to get that exercise, or parking further away so that I'd have to walk further to get to the office. Things like that were intentional increase of difficulty to help me be more fit. And then I decided something I'll do is a push-up I'll do push-ups every day. So I did that for 30 days and it worked. And I thought, well, I can do it for 90 days. And at 90 days, I said I could go for 100. And then I did a year without missing a single day of some exercise. Naturally, some of the exercise was just silly. It was so minimal. But every single day, no exceptions, even when I was ill, like if I had the flu, I could at least get out on the floor and do one push-up. I could do something, leg raises while I'm laying in bed. So I did that. And then I decided I'm going to do push-ups every day. A friend of mine challenged me. He said, do 20 push-ups a day for 20 days as part of this TikTok push-up challenge, acknowledging the returning veterans from Iraq that are committing suicide. So I did. And I doubled up. Instead of 20, I do 20 in the morning, 20 at noon, 20 in the afternoon. And then I realized if I can do that, I can do 100 a day. I did 100 push-ups a day every single day for 5 years. 5 years. Every single day. And during that, I had an operation. I had a radical prostatectomy because I had had prostate cancer. And I said, get it out. I've got a lot of living left to do. So they did a radical prostatectomy, which of course would keep me from doing push-ups. But it took 18 days out of my life of exercise to begin the recovery process from that surgery. And at the end of those 18 days, I was able to go back on the hiking trails and start doing push-ups again. And I'm 78 years old, so I do 50 push-ups every day, which only takes me about a minute. But I do them every single day, even if it's at 11:59 p.m. and I have to get back out of bed because I forgot. I've done push-ups on board an airplane. I've done push-ups backstage at a speech. I've done push-ups at a convention going into an empty meeting room. I find a way to do that minimal bit of exercise every day just to be a little bit more of the person I intend to become.
That's awesome. My favorite book, I'm a book nut. My English teacher in high school would literally flip over in her grave if she would see my library today. Because there's no way that she would say that's the same kid that I taught in high school. But my favorite book, Jim, of all my books, and I've got some great books on here.
I'll bet.
Matter of fact, I ordered your book, and for some reason Amazon didn't deliver it. But my favorite book, The Tortoise and the Hare.
Oh, The Tortoise and the Hare. Wow, that's great.
And I've basically what I've learned from The Tortoise and the Hare is that your consistency will lead to your credibility.
Absolutely.
And it's not what you do every once in a while. It's what you do consistently every day.
I've got some advice for you, and I've got a quick little story for you. Years ago, Ron Willingham, a trainer and author out of Amarillo, Texas at first, Phoenix later, he was given a speech and he showed a slide that just cracked up the whole audience. And the slide was a turtle with a snail on its back. And the snail was going, whee! Because for the snail, this was going fast, right?
Yeah.
It's just a crawl. Well, I thought that's brilliant. And I asked him if I could use that. And he said, yeah. So I had a cartoon made of it. But I would recommend that you adopt the turtle as your logo and use it like I use the acorn as mine. I've got large and small acorns all over the place.
Yeah.
And let that be your metaphor. And I'll see if I can find that cartoon graphic and I'll share it with you.
Oh, that would be hilarious.
But it's such a good metaphor. And you can go so many ways with it. And I can see you, buying little pewter turtles. Like I bought a pewter sea turtle the other day and sent it to a friend of mine who is from China. And he said his grandfather, he's in the U.S., And his grandfather told him one time, he said, grandson, he said, you are like a sea turtle. He said, you're going to America, but the sea turtle always remembers the way home.
Ah,
It
yes.
always knows how to get back home. And so he says, sure enough, here I am 50 plus years old and I'm working half the year in China. And he grew up in New York City. So,
Wow.
man,
I'm gonna definitely have to look into that with my branding team, see what they think. But I
yeah.
love it. I love the snail going wee.
Yeah. And I've got little pewter acorns, little tiny pewter acorns that I found a jeweler that makes them. It was in a little box on my desk. Right here is the acorn, and you can see it has a stem and a cap and a seed. And it's made of pewter. And I carry those in my pocket usually when I go to an event. And a lot of times I come home with them as well. But sometimes I'll find a person that I'll share it with. And I use it as a form of encouragement or congratulations.
Nice.
Like every year when the National Speakers Association elects a new president and that person becomes president-elect for a year and then president, I go to them privately and I say, I have something for you because I'm a past national president. And I put that in their hand and I say, this is an acorn. It has 3 parts, a stem, a cap, and a seed, which represents past, present, future. The stem is the connection between this acorn and all those in its line that came before it. So there's a legacy that's passed on into this acorn. And you have the same thing from all the people in your line, your DNA, all the way back to the beginning of time.
Yeah.
So you carry a legacy, some of it good, some of it not so good. The cap holds onto the seed until it's ready to grow on its own. So the cap represents your parents, your coaches, your role models, your guides, your mentors, the people you've learned from and the people who watch over you. And the seed represents the potential that still lives in you and the potential that will show up through the stem and other seeds throughout the rest of time, because every life you touch will carry that imprint to some degree. And then I fold their hand over on top of the little acorn and I say, so nurture your nature. And I've given those to celebrities when I had a private moment, like Leanne Rimes, the singer. I talked with her one time and I said, I have a gift for you. And I gave that to her and she, you could tell it touched her. And I've given it to people who seemed like everything was lost and they were in a moment of despair. And I just give that as a bit of encouragement, like to a beggar or to somebody struggling or somebody that's really upset. I've given it to people to congratulate them on a big win. So you could have the turtle and a message like that takes you less than a minute and a half to explain, but would be remembered by them.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
You know what I love about I'll call it the majestic oak, that because some of them are really beautiful when you start to look at them. And I say that the mighty, that majestic oak, is nothing more than a little nut that refused to let go.
Exactly. And technically, for my friends who are biologists, technically it's not a nut, it's a seed, but close enough. So what is your acorn going to become? It could become squirrel food if you just lay there and do nothing, right?
Yeah.
It could become fertilizer for something else if you just let the weather degrade you into mulch. Or it could become a mighty oak and be the beginning of a forest of hundreds of millions of acorns that carpet the earth.
Yeah.
You don't have to start with more potential. You've already got the potential. You just need to become the kind of person that imprint is begging you to become. I don't think God whispers. I think it's pretty clear. When people say, I wonder what God's trying to say to me. Excuse me, who? God. Trying? God is incapable of attempts.
Yeah.
Everything God intends happens.
Yeah.
No exception. It always works.
Yeah.
If God wants you to know something, boom, you know it. You don't have to say, I suspect, is there a sign? Nuh-uh. It will be clear. If it's him, it's not going to be fuzzy.
Yeah.
And so listen to what your nature, what your essence, what the goodness in you is saying to you, and follow that and pick a lane and make a commitment. I'm going to succeed in this lane. It may take a long time, may cost a lot, may be painful, but I'm going to do this no matter what it takes. Commit to that particular lane and be open to changes along the way, so that it turns out, if it turns out differently than you thought it would be, at least it's turning out positively different, not negatively different.
Yeah.
Like people say to me, did you know that you would write 27 books and fly all over the world and speak in 25 cities in mainland China and touch millions of lives? Absolutely not. I just wanted to do what the guy on the radio was doing. I wanted to inspire other people, but I had nothing to say, and I'd never given a speech when I started.
Man.
So I think I'm a better example for people to look to than somebody who was a leading athlete or an academic achiever and came into the field of human development from an upper side door. Because I started at the ground level, sweeping the dirt out of the doorway.
Jim, so to use that as our closing thing, and I could probably go on forever listening to you, having you on here. I'm going to go back. I'll download this, shoot it to you. You can do however you want to with it, split it up, part it, however. But one of my all-time philosophers said this in one of my favorite movies. He said, "So you're saying there's a chance?"
Yeah. So you're saying there's a chance.
So you're saying there's a chance. Yeah, I'm telling you.
Tell us the source. Tell us the
Yeah,
source.
absolutely. Floyd. I love Floyd. But it's one of those things that you just have to make the decision, and then you spend the rest of your life defending that decision, right? You make that decision, and then that decision makes you. There's so much things that we can go
Actually,
into.
I wouldn't say defending that decision, because it's more of a extending that decision.
Oh,
than
yes.
defending it, because
Man,
we're talking about just being that, and letting the growth happen. So if you're at acorn stage right now in your particular field, and you got nothing going for you except desire, commit to that field and be willing. If it's a pretty clear God message, God's not going to whisper. If it's a pretty clear God message, you might want to reconsider, then reconsider and follow the new direction that comes. But otherwise, stick to that plan. My son originally thought that he was going to he was going to specialize in music, and he was going into the music industry. But when he was 9 years old, we went to San Francisco, and it was a father-son trip, and I was doing some consulting work for the famous Fairmont Hotel on the top of Nob Hill. And so I took him there with me, and he met Leo Hart, who was the vice president of marketing for the hotel at the time. And he saw the inside workings of high-level hospitality, and he loved it. So years later in college, when he's thinking about majoring in music, he changes his mind, and he goes to work after college as an entry-level employee at the Four Seasons Biltmore Hotel in Santa Barbara. Entry level. And 1 year later, because he's such a good worker, he's promoted and moved to the human resources department. And 1 year later, because he's such a good worker, he's promoted to head of training programs. And 1 year later, he's made what they call him, talent acquisition manager. And so he was in charge of interviewing the new people that came in and processing them with benefit programs and all that. And then he was promoted 1 year later. Now notice, 1 year, he's getting promoted. Assistant Director of Human Resources at the Four Seasons Biltmore in Santa Barbara. Talk about a nice gig. and he's 4 or 5 years into it. And the corporation headquarters in Toronto says, we need you to move to Westlake Village, California, and be the director of human resources for a brand new 500-person hotel, 525 employees at Westlake Village. And we hadn't even built the hotel yet, so you need to move down there and start recruiting employees.
Wow.
And he said, okay. And he moved. Now, in the meantime, his parents, Paula and I, have moved from Tulsa, Oklahoma, Little Rock to Tulsa, Tulsa to San Diego, 20 years in San Diego. And then when Jimmy's son was born, we moved to Westlake Village, Thousand Oaks, California, where he was going to be working. And he became the director of human resources for the Westlake Village Four Seasons Hotel for years and years, while Paula and I were living there 3 miles away.
Wow.
So we saw our grandkids all the time, Jason and Amber. We saw Jimmy and Sonia, his wife, all the time. And we're loving it. My career's thriving. He's loving it. His career's thriving. And recently, he got a call. He said, Dad, the guy that hired me for the Four Seasons 26 years ago, he left after a few years and became general manager of a resort hotel on the coast in Santa Barbara. And he called me the other day. This was last December or so. He told me this. He said he called me the other day and asked me if I was going to stay with the Four Seasons longer. And I said, no, I'm about ready to go because I want to get out from the downstairs office and be out in the world again. And I don't want to be flying all over the world, going to different hotels like I would have to with Four Seasons. And so this guy who interviewed him in the first place said, I have recommended you as my replacement as general manager of the Santa Barbara Inn Four Diamond Hotel on the coast in Santa Barbara, where your wife grew up and your son lives. And January 6th, I think it was, he moved to that hotel, and April 30th took over as general manager, where he's living the life of his dreams. Unbelievable.
You can't make that up.
It all started from that father-son trip when he was 9 years old in the Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco, when he got the impression of the hospitality industry and wanted to be like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Jim, hey, thank you so much for sharing that story. Thank you so much for sharing all these stories. I love stories. And I know the cool kids, they may not be as big as book nuts as I am, but they love a good story. So thank you so much. Hey, before we go, give us one fun fact. Give us one fun fact about Jim Cathcart that may not be that well known.
I've been on an episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians. I was the chair of a big fundraising event, 600 people, for the Boys and Girls Clubs in Thousand Oaks, California, Westlake Village, at the Four Seasons, come to think of it. And one year, several years ago, we brought our celebrity guest speaker in, and it was Bruce Jenner, who is now Caitlyn Jenner. And Bruce Jenner was married to Kris Jenner, head of the family, Keeping Up with the Kardashians. And so he was our keynote speaker, and they brought with him to the event their camera crew for the TV show. And I ended up with a little, 15-second blip on one of their shows. So that's a fun fact. Oh, also, I'm a life member of the American Motorcyclists Association, and by tenure. And I've ridden over 150,000 miles on motorcycles all over the world.
Wow. Hey, that's having some fun right there.
Yeah, it is.
Jim, I can't thank you enough for agreeing to come on here. This is going to air on Saturday, but it's going to be so much fun. Thank you again. Hey, we're definitely going to connect. I know we're going to be on a cruise in November together, so I can't wait for that event. That's going to be happening. The business
and my email's my name, Jim at Cathcart.
Jim Cathcart.
No, Jim at Cathcart. First name at lastname.com.
Yeah, awesome. And then I'll put the links down below for people to get the books on Amazon and connect with you.
Thank you. It's been a joy.
Hey, appreciate it.
See ya.